Hello folks, in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to get nice pictures for, let's say, an online shop. Now this is an example of things going wrong, and this is a real picture that was uploaded by a real client of mine, or at least perhaps an employee, I'm not entirely sure, and I hope he forgives me. He's a cool guy, you know. I hope he forgives me for showing you this, but I just want to get your attention and show you what we're trying to avoid. Okay, so these are real pictures uploaded to a real online shop, and it's absolutely heartbreaking, you know. I'm not cheap, and it's so sad when you charge people good money for an online shop and they upload duff pictures. Here's one that went up recently which is a lot better, but it's still not perfect. You can see we've got these hard shadows here that don't do any favors at all, and it looks like they're scuffing up here, and we've got a lens flare here and more scuff marks here. These are just not great, you know. So in this video I'm going to take you away from all of this stuff, and the goal is to be able to get pictures that look like this. This is the standard that we are aiming for. We want pictures that are sharp, we want pictures that are a decent size, and we want pictures, if we can, that have a pure white background. Normally I speak about web development on this channel, and I'm not a photographer, but I think that it's safe to say this does take us somewhat into the realms of photography, and this is a video that I'm going to be giving to my clients from now on, and you're welcome to give it to yours as well. You do not need to be like this guy. Okay, check all of the gear he's got. I mean, some of the cameras must be worth fortunes. You do not need to be that guy to get good results. And in fact, it all starts, and I'm not going to do this, but just to save time, it all begins with a light box. Now there's a video here. I do not want to regurgitate information that's already out there, but there's an excellent video on YouTube, how to build a photo light box for less than $10. It's only 4 minutes long, folks. All you need is a couple of lights, 2 or 3 lights, a cardboard box. You're going to cut holes in the side of the cardboard box, and then you're going to use either a special paper or a cloth on the side of the box to diffuse the light. Now what I mean by diffusing the light is, you know how when it's a really cloudy day and you look down and there are no shadows? That is what we are aiming for, because if you're trying to get pictures that look like this, then there are 2 enemies of good pictures. The first enemy is shadows. Shadows are not good. The second enemy is lens flares. We want to avoid those 2 things, right? So we can avoid the shadows by diffusing the light. So what's going on in this video, and I'll leave a link, is she shows you in 4 minutes how to build a light box. Right here she's getting a curved piece of white cardboard. It's curved so there are no creases. We're trying to avoid the shadows, and you'll see eventually that she shines the light onto the box and takes a picture, and it ends up something like this. This is something that you can do with an ordinary mobile phone. It's quite cheap and cheerful. Check out the video, and if you are serious, you need to take the time to do this, okay? And get it into your head that it's perfectly normal to take a full morning or a full afternoon adding 1 item. If we're going to do it, might as well do it right. Anyway, once you take a picture from a light box, that's not the full story. And you'll notice, here's another one from a light box. Again, I've just taken it from YouTube. I don't have a light box in here anymore. I'm just advising my clients on how I did this in the past. But you'll notice that when you take pictures, even in a light box, even with everything done right, the pictures will never be entirely white. You see, here's a shoe here. It may look white, but it's not quite, you know. Now, by the way, just before I go on to talking about making things white, you don't need to go pure white all the time. Here's a YouTube video I found, and I'll leave a link, where the guy has a dark card and he's taking a picture of a watch here. He has a couple of little bits and pieces, and I think that the results are excellent. But if you're going to do that, something like this, make sure you have a neutral background colour, such as grey or silver or black, or a colour that matches the website. But you can do that. My recommendation though is to try and go all Apple and aim for something like this. Assuming you've followed my advice, you get a light box and you take the time to get a really detailed picture, you'll end up with something like this. To the untrained eye, this is pretty much perfect. However, the background will not be pure white. It never is, it's just the way it goes, you know. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to get a pure white background. In fact, I'll leave a link to this picture in the description if you want to download and try this, right? So what I would do is I would head off to Photopea, that's how I pronounce it, other people say it differently. And I'm going to open that picture from the computer. Again, you can get this from the link provided in the description. Now, when you open up Photopea, it's a really good practice, I think, to immediately open up the navigator. So I'm going to go to Window, Navigator, and this allows me to zoom in and move around and zoom out and all of that stuff. Also, just so you know, you can use Command plus or Control plus, okay, and minus. And if you want to go back to the actual size, it's Command 0 or Control 0, or at least it will try its best to fit it into the screen. Now, let's lock this layer that we've got because we're not going to change this, right? I'm going to click on this lock icon here. Actually, I'll select background. I'm going to click here for lock. And you'll see a little padlock here. And that's because I do not want to mess with the original image. Instead, I'm going to create a new layer down here. So click new layer. Then I'm going to go to this little section here. Now, unfortunately, it's remembering settings for me from previously. So the idea is I'm choosing a color and I want a really deep green color, right? I'm going to say OK. Then I'm going to get the paint bucket tool. Now, if I look down this toolbar, you'll see we've got some of these have got little pointing to the lower right hand side arrows. When you click there, you'll see that there's more options. And in this case, the paint bucket tool lives right next door to the gradient tool. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to click right on this picture here. Okay, so that looked pretty destructive, right? Just added a big pointless green background, but stay cool. Everything has a purpose. I'm going to go back to this green background, right click, duplicate layer. And with this new layer, I'm going to move it right to the top. So now I know that the green background is behind this thing here, okay? So now the name of the game is let's cut out the background here that's not quite white but maybe nearly white. To do this, I'm going to use the magic wand tool. You'll find it up here. Again, I'm going to click this little arrow and here it is. It's the magic wand tool, okay? Now, when you click, it probably won't work first time and, you know, we're trying to get a nice sharp edge here. You can play around with the tolerance up here. So it's defaulting to 10, but if I change it to something like 40 and click, well, that's too tolerant because that's eating into the watch, you see. But you can play around and maybe you'll get lucky and you'll find something that works. But if you don't, well, there are a couple of other things. I can go back to 10. Let's just try again. Okay, now I've got a little segment up here. I'm going to press Shift. Going to hold in Shift and click again. And keep on going. I'm holding in Shift and clicking. Holding in Shift and clicking. And oh, how I wonder. Let me try this again, actually. I'll bring the tolerance down. I'll try 6. Okay, so click, holding in Shift, click. Let's go again. There we go. There we go. I think that's going to work. 6 is the magic number, folks. Okay, so now that this left section is selected, I'm going to choose the eraser tool here. Make sure you have a decent brush size. We can click up here and change it to maybe about 100 and, let's say 150 odd, run about there. And I'm just going to remove, see, I'm rubbing out this layer above here, revealing our green background. And the reason why I'm just doing a green background is just because I really want to see the thing, you know, I want to see this background and just know that I'm doing this right. So, there we go. Not too bad, right? So that's a demonstration of the magic wand tool, and it's pretty good. It does a good job and everything. There may, however, be times when the magic wand tool is not up to the job. Now, it just so happens in this picture it all works fabulously, but let's imagine that the magic wand tool was just not working for us. Let's say, or assume that we're clicking here and it's just for whatever reason not working. Well, there is an alternative tool that we can use, and it's the choice of the professionals. It's called the pen tool. So if I go here, I'm going to choose pen. Here it is. And what this does is it allows us to draw curves in quite a graceful way, right? So I'm going to click here. I'm clicking once. I'm going to go up here and click again. That's nice. Oh, now, by the way, I should say, when you're on the pen tool, make sure, you may be on shape, make sure this is on path, okay? And where we've got the fill type, make sure that's crossed out. Same with the stroke, that's very important, right? So I'll start again. So here we go. I'm going to click, I'm going to go up here, click again, I'm going to click, I'm going to clickety-click, and I'm going to click around about here. Now, that last one is not really straight actually, so let me just do Command Z or Control Z. I'm going to click again and I'm holding in click, and as I hold it in, do you see how we can bend it a little bit? So I'll add just a wee bit of a curve, that's perfect. Now here, I'm going to click and we can bend again if it makes you feel good. There we go. Okay, I'll click here now. Okay, now I'm going to click here and try. Now, do you see how it's misbehaving a wee bit? If that happens, what you want to do is undo. Then press in Alt, click on the last point that you were on, and then go again, and we should be good. I'm going to click. I'm going to click here. And again, I'm just trying to add in a wee bit of bend. That's not quite, what was that? Okay. Yeah, I think I can probably live with that. I'm going to go maybe here now. Okay, now it's not quite behaving. So I'm going to undo with Command Z or Control Z. I'm going to hit Alt. And with Alt in, I'm clicking on the last point. Now if I click here, holding it in, I can bend it into shape, you see. Normally when you're computing, if you're doing Control Z all the time or Command Z, it means you're doing something wrong. Not with the pen tool. Now when we've got these double handles, it means there's a good chance we might get messed about. If that's the case and you're worried, just hold in Alt, click the last point, and we're back in the game. So here we go again. Alright, so I'm just doing a nice curve, holding in that button. There we go. And for, whoops, do you see how that's misbehaving? So again, I'm undoing, going to press Alt, click on the last point. Now we can click here. Okay, for these straight lines, I'm just doing left clicks, and we've got a big curve section here. Alright, so I'll bring the size down a wee bit. And with this, I'm going to click maybe about here, bending it across. And I think I can just about live with that. Let's do another point here. Click, left click. You can see that it's not behaving. So we undo. We hold in Alt. Click on the last point. There we go. I'm going to click here. Now it's behaving for me. Alright, so the Alt button is your friend. I'm going to click it. Oh, there we go again. So undo. Alt. Click the last point. Thank you very much indeed. Now I'm going to click here. And we can bend that. Maybe not to our will, but we can bend it into a decent shape. There we go. Now we're on the home straight. I'm just going to click, well, there's a little curve here. Again, it's not behaving, so undo. Alt, click the last point. Now we're good. And I'll just click here. Okay, that's fine. Let's just do this one now. Perfect. So I'm going to close this thing off. When I say close this thing, I mean the shape that I'm making. So do you see how I'm doing that? And then we join up with the last part. Alright, so we have a shape. So what? Well, here's what we do. We right click and you choose Make Selection. Now, with that being the case, we can go back to the eraser tool here. And very easily and effortlessly, I'll make the brush a bit bigger actually. Now we can just rub out all of that stuff. Alright, and thanks to the pen tool, I've got these really nice smooth curves going on, you know. I didn't need the pen tool for this example, but I just wanted to show you it, you know. That's what the professionals use. Okay, so there we go. Now, we have a miserable green background, but at least I can see that I've done this, at least to the best of my abilities. There's a gap, I suppose, on the top right here. And if something like that bothers you, well, you could perhaps use the polygonal lasso select. I'm going to choose that. Maybe click here. And I'm going to just make this a straight line. So I'll click here. Then I'll just round off this shape. And once again into the eraser tool, and I'm deleting. There we go, that's perfect. Okay, deselecting here. I'm going to do Control-0. Nice. So let's make a new layer after this green one. So I'm clicking onto the green layer. I'm going to go down here, going to choose New Layer. And this new layer is going to be white. So into the color thing here, whoops. There we go. I'm going to move up here, and you know it's white if the hexadecimal code is FFF, FFF. I'm going to say OK. Choose the paint bucket tool, and then just click once. Perfect. Now, by the way, this has turned out pretty good, but if you end up with parts that are a bit jagged or that don't look quite right, for example, do you see how that's really sharp here? If you are a complete perfectionist, there's one more tool that I can introduce you to. It's called the blur tool. Okay, here it is here. And you want it on a strength of about 25. Like this. Now it's a very subtle thing. You might not even notice the difference. But I'm just going to click and hold in and run along this line here. It's very subtle, folks. Oh, actually, we can't see it here because I need to flatten the image. I'm going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. There we go. Now I'm going to run along this line here. There we go. And it's very subtle, but can you see how it's just getting rid of that kind of harsh, jaggedy look there, you know? So you can do that on the problem areas if you want. Anyway, I'm going to go Control-0. And now I want this thing to be a decent size, so I'm going to go to the crop tool. Okay, and now I'm going to choose fixed size. For an average online shop, 750 by 750 will be just perfect. So there we go. Okay, now it's given me this square. I'm going to just widen it here. I'll take in as much of the watch face as I can. I don't want to have loads of white space on this image here. Something like that. And then you just hit return. Perfect. Alright, so with that being the case, now I'm just going to say File, export as, and I would recommend a JPEG. Now, it doesn't need to be 100% quality. We can change the quality here, right? But around about, well, let's just see. I think around about 70 or 80 will be fine. But feel free to find what works for you. We do not need to go to 100. I'm going to go to 80% here. And I'm going to hit save. Alright, so that's the image now saved. And you end up with something like that. Nice and sharp, nice and crisp with a perfect white background. I hope this has been helpful and I'll see you soon.